They were abandoned just hours after birth. No names, no goodbyes. But what if I told you their entire existence was never meant to be ordinary? This is the story of three children who weren't born to be loved, they were born to expose a truth the world never wanted to see. On a freezing winter morning in 2001, inside a small rural hospital tucked away in South Carolina, where the wind whistled through window cracks and snow blanketed the rooftops, something happened that left the entire delivery room in stunned, breathless silence. For several long seconds, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Three cries rang out almost in unison. Three newborns had just entered the world healthy with rosy cheeks. But what made everyone freeze in disbelief was their skin. They didn't resemble their father, nor their mother. They had deep brown skin, striking dark eyes, and thick curly black hair. And this wasn't just one child, all three babies looked this way. Yet their biological parents were unmistakably white platinum blonde hair, icy blue eyes, a perfect suburban couple until now. Nurse Ruby, the midwife on duty, later recalled that in her 30-plus years of service, she had never seen anything like it. My hands were trembling as I cut the cord for the third baby. Not out of fear, but because I knew something was deeply wrong. Rachel, the mother, collapsed on the bed, her eyes wide with terror. James, the husband, said nothing. He just stood there staring at the babies as if looking into the abyss of a reality he never wanted to believe existed. Hours later, they vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, not even a backward glance. Just three infants curled up under white hospital blankets while the shift change bell echoed through the halls, cold and indifferent. Much like the world itself, which keeps turning unmoved by the pain of the powerless. And then, no one came. No mistaken paperwork, no missing relatives, no family stepping forward for DNA confirmation, no apology from the hospital. They were fully legal and fully abandoned. 2 days later, a plain manila file marked unidentified orphaned infants was sent to the state's child welfare center. The last signature belonged to a young doctor who resigned quietly a year after the incident. No one ever knew why. And those three children? How did they grow up? Who raised them? And why did it take 24 years for the truth about their origins and the mystery behind their birth to finally come to light? This is not a fairy tale. This is a journey of identity, of love, and of justice. After lying in the hospital for 4 days without anyone coming to claim them, the three babies were transferred to a care center south of Columbia. No names, no birth certificates, no original records. They were given names inspired by three mountains their caretaker loved most, Malik, Ayana, and Theo, names that spoke of strength, life, and hope. Fortunately, in 2002, an elderly couple, Clarice and Darnell Freeman, came forward to adopt all three children together. They lived in the outskirts of town in a modest wooden house that was always filled with laughter and the smell of toasted bread in the mornings. Clarice was a retired school teacher, and Darnell had once been a firefighter. They never had children of their own. Clarice suffered a medical accident after a miscarriage years before. To them, these three children were not a burden, but a late blessing from God. Yet life was far from peaceful. In a region still tainted by racial prejudice, the sight of three black children abandoned at birth by a white couple growing up in a poor black household became a source of constant poisonous gossip. They must be the result of some dirty affair. No way three kids come out looking nothing like their parents. Maybe they're part of some crime, or even an experiment. The rumors grew louder following Malik, Ayana, and Theo into their classrooms. Even though Clarice taught them to walk tall and hold their heads high, it was impossible not to feel the sting when whispers trailed behind their backs or when teachers looked at them with silent pity. Malik, the eldest, began to rebel at 15. He grew quiet, easily irritated, and was often called to the principal's office for fighting. One night, after being stopped by police for riding his bike without a light, Malik came home and broke down in tears. He told his adoptive mother, "I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere." Ayana, on the other hand, turned to books. She became obsessed with the concept of genetic identity. In secret, she sent a strand of her hair to an online DNA testing company. The results left her stunned, a 99.9% match to an encrypted file from the South Carolina State Health System, but the parental data section locked by restricted access. Meanwhile, Theo, the youngest, passionate about music, composed a ballad titled "Where Do I Begin?" and shared it online. To everyone's surprise, the song went viral. In a local podcast interview, the host asked, "Who is your song about?" He replied, "My parents. Both kinds, the ones who gave me life and the ones who gave me love." As the siblings grew older, they began to feel it more strongly. A silence never explained, a secret buried. Why had all records of their birth, their biological parents, even the date of delivery, been completely erased? Ayana uncovered something strange. There were two original birth certificates, one overwritten, and a medical ID number that didn't appear in any public hospital registry. So they began to investigate. With help from Ayana's boyfriend Jordan, a journalism student, they started tracing clues from anonymous nurse forums. A user named NightShift01 recounted a delivery that had haunted her for life. Three babies born with a skin tone drastically different from their parents and abandoned shortly after. Ayana was convinced that was us. Jordan accessed archived documents from the old hospital shut down in 2006 following a healthcare scandal. There they uncovered records of a genetic research program funded by a private laboratory. One entry stood out: application of embryonic gene modification experiment, objective enhance immunity and amplify elite gene traits. And the name listed as the lead funder: James Whitmore, their biological father. That was when the horrific truth began to unravel. James wasn't betrayed by his wife. He willingly volunteered for the gene-altering project while Rachel was pregnant, determined to create superior children. But the results spiraled out of control. The babies were born not with their parents' traits, but with the genetic makeup of a black DNA test sample used in the experimental trial. Fearing for their reputation, James and Rachel decided to cover everything up. They signed the relinquishment papers and paid off the entire hospital staff to stay silent. Malik, Ayana, and Theo stood in silence before the decaying structure of the old hospital. The cold wind howled through the shattered glass windows, right where 24 years ago, their first cries echoed into the world. Now there was only the wind and the truth. I don't need someone to give birth to me. I just need someone who chooses to stay. After Jordan published the full story on his blog, complete with original documents and hospital records, the tale of the swapped gene siblings exploded into a national scandal. Headlines blared across major outlets. The truth behind the 2001 abandoned triplets, not an affair. A failed genetic experiment. The media descended in droves. Reporters camped outside Clarice and Darnell's home. Neighbors who once whispered with suspicion now praised their rare kindness and courage. But for the three siblings, public opinion didn't matter. What did was the final meeting with the ones who gave them life. The reunion took place in a secured room arranged by attorneys. Rachel, now frail, her silver hair framing a worn, anxious face. James, still tall, but the pride had vanished from his eyes. When the three entered, no one spoke for almost a minute. Only the sound of breathing filled the space. Then Ayana broke the silence. "We didn't come here for excuses. We came here for closure." James lowered his head, voice cracking. "Wasn't a good man. But not a single day has passed that I haven't thought about you three." Malik let out a bitter laugh. "Your children. You never saw us as your children from the beginning." Rachel broke down in tears. She pulled out an old photograph, three newborns in her arms. "I didn't have the courage. I couldn't face the truth. I was wrong." A long, heavy silence followed. Then Theo, the youngest, spoke softly. "My first song was about being abandoned. But today I'm going to write a new one about choice, because Clarice and Darnell chose to stay. They chose to love. They chose to forgive. And as for the two of you, you don't need to apologize anymore. We've had a real family for a long time." 1 year later, in a grand hall filled with hundreds of attendees, Ayana stood at the podium, delivering a speech at the launch of a new organization called Choose to Love. Its mission to support and protect children who have been abandoned, discriminated against for their skin color, gender disabilities, or who have suffered as victims of unethical medical experiments. Clarice sat in the front row, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched the three children who once slept in her arms now rise to become leaders of a powerful movement of compassion and change. The world doesn't need you to give birth to someone. What the world needs is for you to choose to stay even just once for someone who needs it most.